Okay, Jim, take it away.
All right, folks. Thank you all for jumping on this Zoom briefing with us. We are being recorded and I guess live streaming on Facebook. So we are here with Commissioners Diane Marseglia. She's our chair, Vice Chair Bob Harvey, and Commissioner Jean DiGirolamo. We're also joined by our Emergency Services Director, Audrey Kenny. They are going to speak for a few minutes each, and then we'll open it up to questions. Just use the old raise your hand feature or throw a question in the chat, and we'll do what we can to get to everybody. With that, I'll pass it off to Commissioner Marseglia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you here. We are having a press conference by Zoom, and I am in a car. So like many of you, we are all struggling with the roadways, and I thought I would get to my destination by then, but it's not working out quite that way. So I apologize for that. And although you're seeing all this by Zoom, we were all together in the Emergency Operations Center earlier today, where we were with our staff, who has been working for well over 24 hours without breath. You should know that they are working very hard to make sure that they are responsible to the individual, family, and the infrastructure needs throughout this county. They are rescuing people. They are dealing with road problems, bridge problems, and electric problems. They are out there. Between 3 p.m. yesterday and dawn this morning, we took over 5,200 calls for assistance. On a normal day, we would get about 1,500. So that goes to show the amount of calls that are coming through. Unfortunately, at least one of those calls turned out to be related to a fatality. We don't have any information on that yet, but our thoughts and prayers are with their friends and family. I think that it's important to let you know that my colleagues, the COO, our emergency management staff, and our director of emergency management were all sitting in the Emergency Operations Center today when we received a call from the governor's office, from FEMA, and from the White House directly. So I want you to know that your concerns and your needs are being heard out there. All levels of government do care and are paying attention, and we are working together to come up with solutions and create answers to your questions. One of the biggest things that we are worried about right now, however, is the weather, and that is because it is so beautiful, you may be venturing out. You'll run into roads like I did that are blocked, but also roads that are flooded. That is our major concern. This event is not over. There's more that can happen, and we are concerned that you stay safe. To talk a little bit more about that, I will pass this off to Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Commissioner Marseglia, and thank you everybody for joining in with us. As Commissioner Marseglia said, like everybody else here in Bucks County, we woke up with this beautiful weather, beautiful blue skies, and dealing with whatever aftermath we had to deal with in our neighborhoods and in our properties. But there is still a threat of flooding. Obviously, the Delaware River and the Chamonix Creek are our two biggest concerns. I want to make sure people are aware, especially in the communities along those waterways, that there's still a risk for flooding. We are still keeping an eye on both of those bodies of water. The further north you go in the county, further up county, Riegelsville or Winna, Muellerstown area, we're expecting some kind of cresting of the river later this evening. And so it's going to keep going up. As you move a little further south, New Hope, again, cresting a little earlier this evening. In terms of lower down in the county, Bristol Borough, Marsville area, it is going to be subject to tides. There's going to be times when the river's coming up pretty high, and then as the tides go out, it's going to be a little bit different, but the tide will come back again. And so, keep an eye on those rivers throughout the rest of the day. And please, stay safe if you have properties along those waterways. Same thing with the Chamonix Creek. We're keeping an eye on that as well. So if you have property along those waterways, your family or friends who live along those waterways, just make sure that they're in a safe spot. Make sure that if you don't feel safe there, make sure you're moving to some other place of higher ground. We did, as Audrey Kenny will talk about, I'm sure, in a minute. We had a lot of water rescues over the course of this storm, which puts a lot of people in danger. Obviously, not just the people who are needing to be rescued, but the staff who are having to do those rescues. And we're very concerned about everyone's safety. So we're asking everyone to sort of just be cautious, at least for the next 24 hours or so, at least. I also want to make people aware, Bucks County does have an emergency notification system. If you're interested in being part of that system, you can sign up on the Bucks County website, which is buckscounty.gov. If you go to buckscounty.gov and you type in the search bar emergency notifications, it'll give you the pages that you can click on, and you can sign up for what's called Ready Bucks, so that you will get notifications of things as they come up. Not just weather related, but certainly over the past 24 hours, needing to notify people about weather emergencies has been the thing that we've been trying to do the most. So I will pass it on at this point to Commissioner Deidre Oliver.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining in on this update. And what can we say? I mean, just to try to put this in a little bit of a perspective, a couple of months ago, when we had that terrible storm down in the lower part of the county that affected Bensalem, Bristol, and Bristol Borough. That storm dumped in a short period of time 8+ inches of rain in those areas. And we know the devastation that happened because of that. This storm from Hurricane Ida has dumped 4 to 8 inches of rain over most of the entire county, with some areas locally getting 10+ inches of rain. I don't think it would be over the top to say that this storm has been catastrophic as far as it relates to Bucks County, and the devastation could have been a lot worse. And I've got to point out to our first responders in every one of our municipalities, they have performed admirably, really heroically. I don't know where we would be without their efforts and hard work and heroism. It certainly would be a lot worse. And also, I want to thank Audrey Kenny, who I believe is going to speak next, who is our Director of Emergency Service. She has just done an incredible job, and all the people, the emergency people that work for the county, have just done an incredible job. And it's already been mentioned, they've been up all night, just on a few hours sleep, and are continuing to work today. So with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Audrey Kenny to give us an update on what has happened and where we are now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to talk today. A little bit of an update on the power. That seems to be a popular question. When's the power going to come back on? As of right now, we have about 4,700 residents or businesses that are without power. Our power companies continue to work this effort. PECO has about 3,200 of those customers. PP&L has 680, and MedEd has about 826. So we're continuing to work with those partners to keep that status updated as well. 17% of the county is what we report as out of power right now. For the next steps for Emergency Management Agency, we are going to be monitoring the flooding. This is a two-part event, as Commissioner Marseglia mentioned earlier. We had the initial impact from the storm, and now we're going to be monitoring the events of the river and the Neshaminy over the coming days related to the flooding. We're hoping that the things settle down quickly from that. But we do have teams out in the municipalities where the water has receded, starting to assess their damage and report that into the Emergency Management Office. The river communities will continue to review the damage that they have locally as well and let us know. They may wait till after the river crests and starts to recede so they can get a better snapshot of what's happening. They're also evaluating all the damage that's been received or occurred at their infrastructure as well, the roadways, the bridges, any kind of government buildings and things like that that were impacted from the storm and the floodwaters. so we can make sure that we account for all of that in our damage for the county. If you're a resident in Bucks County or a business and you have damage at your facility or at your home, please contact your municipality. Let them know what your damage is, how severe it is, and where they can come and evaluate that for reporting purposes. We are working with other county officials. We're working with our local emergency management agencies and with our state partners. The state has been tremendous. FEMA sent resources into the Emergency Operations Center last night. They've continued to work with us throughout the day and tomorrow. They brought in teams from all around the state to help with some of the recovery efforts that we were working with last night throughout the day today. And they've been a tremendous partner in this process for us. This is going to be a very long recovery. We have quite a bit of infrastructure, road damage, home damage, things along those lines. So we do expect that this recovery will take some time. We'll keep updating our commissioners and our partners in the field with next steps for us. Most important message that I could share today was if you're out and about, especially as the river continues to rise today, please do not drive into standing water. You have no idea if the roadway is still there, under the water. You don't know what the debris, the hazards are. Turn around, don't drown. This is the most important part. It protects our first responders, and it protects our residents too. So with that, I am finished with my report.
I'm going to just jump back to Commissioner Harvey for a second. He has an update on some of the rivers.
Yeah, thank you. Just literally, just as we were speaking, I did get an update from our emergency management agency. Just to kind of verify that again, further upriver, we're looking at cresting of the river, the Regalsville area, Eulerstown area, somewhere around 9 o'clock. New Hope somewhere around 8 o'clock. Further downriver, we are expecting it to crest overnight. It's again, as we said, we're not out of the woods. Don't be fooled by what the weather's like outside right now. Just remember to be safe and to try and stay home if you can. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and please do stay home. We don't want you to be at risk, but we don't want to put our tired first responders anymore at risk either. So if there's any questions, we're happy to take them.
Thank you, commissioners. It looks like Kelly Rule from Fox 29 was the first one to throw her hand up. Kelly, you can unmute and ask your question.
Just two quick questions. I know you guys don't have a lot to release about the tragic death, but do we know if that happened in Milford Township? Is there any way you can confirm that? And if it was a man or woman, relative age, that kind of thing?
Audrey, have you been given any information? We have not.
It was in Milford Township. The state police released that information just a bit ago. I don't know if they released any information about the person that they discovered, but it was in Milford.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know there's widespread damage. I just wasn't sure if you could highlight some of the hardest hit areas or areas where you guys are still dealing with a lot of standing water and you're asking people to stay away.
Audrey, do you have specifics? I mean, we can say the river towns are a true concern all along the Delaware.
Right. So the hardest hit areas, there was really not a municipality that wasn't affected last night from flash flooding or high water. Some of the more harder hit areas included places like Sellersville, Percy, Quakertown, Doylestown, Buckingham. The mid-county area seemed to get a heavier rain load, but we were experiencing water rescues throughout the county. I would hesitate to guess on the number at this point. We're still digesting the types of calls that we dispatched last night, but there was a tremendous amount of water rescues throughout the county, and I don't think that there was one area that was excluded.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kelly. We're going to move on to Joe Chevalier from the Bucks County Courier-Times. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you for this update. I'm wondering, given the number of roads that are either flooded or damaged, do you have any sense as to when most of those roads might be passable again. Is this going to last throughout the weekend, with the holiday weekend coming up? Do you have any sense as to how long some roads are going to be out of commission?
I'll just start off that answer by saying we have rivers that haven't crested yet. So we can't even begin to talk about them receding until the first part happens. So, and I think it depends on how much is out of that river. So, Audrey, have you been given anything on that?
No, Commissioner, you're right. We haven't observed cresting on the river yet. So until that happens, we also have other things that could influence that, like reservoirs in New York releasing or anything along those lines that could further delay a return to normal traffic flow.
Thank you.
So then would you suggest then that people just try to avoid roads this weekend?
Yes. I don't know if my colleagues have any other comments, but yes.
Yeah. I think so many of the road blockages are trees that were down. I encountered a lot of them myself just trying to get up to the office today from where I live. But I also know there were crews already out early this morning working on those, and so municipalities are dealing with down trees and issues all over. We do have a couple. We have an old covered bridge up in Percy that unfortunately was knocked off its moorings. So we're going to have to evaluate the status of that, but it's obviously not passable. We have some other reports of bridges that are out, smaller bridges that are out here and there over creeks or damaged, and so there are some of those issues. But in terms of the smaller roadways, the township and borough roads that may have been passable now. And there are a certain number of people out there who do tree removal, and their phones started ringing off the hook sometime yesterday, and I'm sure they're still ringing off the hook, not just from municipalities, but also from private, landowners, property owners, business owners who all are looking for them. And so there's a finite number of those people who can come and do that work. So it is tough at this point. It is like Hurricane Sandy several years ago in the sense of trees being down, but and just having to be patient and wait until we get a chance to get all those trees removed and get those roadways passable.
Joe, do you have another question?
Yes, I just have a follow-up question. Do you have any sense of a timeline yet? Have you heard from the federal FEMA about? I know we've declared a disaster declaration, as has neighboring Montgomery County. Do you have any sense as to if there's going to be federal assessors coming in?
Well, we're assessing ourselves right now. They've reached out, and we will ask them to come in if we can start to assess the damage and think we're in that ballpark. We certainly want the help to help everybody get back on their feet again.
All right. Thank you, Joe. We're going to move on to Justine McDaniel from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Justine, go ahead.
Hi, folks. Can you talk a little bit about the intensity of the water rescues? I mean, you said they're occurring, in all areas of the county. Did that stretch your capacity for doing them? What was that like for the emergency responders? Can you just talk a little bit about, the intensity of that effort?
Audrey, do you want to handle that?
Sure. It was quite a night of calls, specifically with water rescues. There was a lot of folks who ended up in high water. There were also rescues that occurred pulling people out of apartments that were getting overtaken by water or homes. It is a very tense situation to deal with. Water is unrelenting, especially when it's angry like it was last night. It was taxing for our systems. We did request mutual support. We sent up requests to the state to send additional resources into the county to help us to effect those rescues. At one point, we brought in boats from the city of Bethlehem Township, I think, sent a crew down to help with a rescue in Durham Township at a house fire. It is difficult, especially when they can't get to the people as a normal emergency. Not that there's anything normal about this type of an event, but it was even more taxing to find enough resources to get where we need to send help. We had quite a bit going on in Percy and Sellersville for several hours last night, and we tried to bring in resources from the lower end of the county, but because of the water and the trees and the debris and the wires, we couldn't get them there. So we had to get help from outside of the county, from the northern part of the county to perhaps traverse in. County Line Road was affected, 309 was affected. Every main thoroughfare seemed to have challenges just trying to get help where it needed to go. So we certainly had a difficult time. It was a lot of tense moments in the 911 center and in the Emergency Operations Center. We shouldered through it. I think it was a true show of teamwork among the first responders. It was they gave it everything they could to try to protect as many people as possible.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have a question? Throw up a hand, drop a question in the chat. Looks like Kelly from Fox 29 has another question. Kelly, go ahead.
I apologize. I just wanted to gauge, when you're talking about the river not cresting yet, I mean, is New Hope preparing to be underwater tonight? I was just trying to gauge, what they're expecting and how high and how people can prepare for that.
Audrey, can take that one, Audrey?
Yep, the municipalities have been in constant contact with us throughout the past 24 hours, just letting us know about their vulnerable areas to make sure that we're getting messaging out to communities that sit in low-lying areas or that historically have had challenges when this kind of rain event happens. We've been sending reverse 911 messages out to them and letting them know where they could go for shelter or to evacuate from a particular area to find shelter.
What their prediction is.
What is your prediction, though, for how high it's going to get?
So the river, the Delaware River Prediction Service has provided us with recent updates, and I can have that communicated out. I can share the link. It's just a website that the state and the Weather Service put together. We're happy to share that with you to take a look at if you'd like. It really ranges from the northern end of the county in Riegelsville all the way down through Yardley, everywhere along the river. And Chamonix has a gauge as well. Just there's the various levels and what the forecast is. I think, Commissioner Harvey, do you happen to have that handy, that slide?
The one I have is a couple hours old.
Okay.
But I do know that, we're looking at, in some cases, it's in the minor flooding area. In some cases, it's approaching the major flooding area. Again, varies from northern part of the county to the southern part of the county. It certainly is it's something that's important for us it's important enough for us to mention as much as we're mentioning it. But as Audrey said, every municipality has its own emergency management coordinator, all 54 of them. In some cases they share emergency management coordinator, but they're all represented. They've been in constant contact. There's been regular briefings now for a few days leading up to this storm, with predictions and alerts and cooperation. So every municipality is aware of the situations, obviously, as we are. As the information changes, we notify them. And so we are, we're concerned about it. We want to make sure people are aware of it and that they take it seriously.
I'll put that link in the chat, and then I'm sure Jim can share it with you if you'd like. I just picked the Riegelsville gauge to take a look at. I live in Riegelsville, so it's one that I keep a pretty close eye on anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Justine, you have another question?
Yeah, thanks. Can you just talk a little bit about how precedented or unprecedented this is and concerns that you may have about climate change, the chance of this, occurring more frequently or worsening? Yeah, thanks.
Commissioner DiGirolamo or Commissioner Harvey, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, Justine, I don't mind jumping in there. I mean, I've lived here in Bensalem and Bucks County my entire life. I'm 71 years old. And before I became an elected official, I was a farmer. So So the weather and watching the weather was something that myself and my family did all the time, because when you're a farmer, I mean, the weather just affects what you can plant, what you can harvest, how you harvest. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, in all my years here living in Bucks County, that last storm a couple of months ago and this storm, I mean, there have been storms that have been similar, but it just appears that we're getting these catastrophic amounts of rain and wind and tornadoes in a much closer timeline. And protecting the environment has always been important to me. I spent 25 years up in Harrisburg. Very proud of that the last 2 years in Harrisburg, I was the first House Republican that got a 100% voting record on the environmental scorecard. And if there is anybody that says that there is not something going on with our environment and global warming is not happening, I mean, we've really got to take this seriously. This is just not about doing something right now. This is about protecting our environment, our country, and our planet for our children and grandchildren. And we've got to take this very seriously. And we've got to do things to make sure that we get together, work together. This should not be a partisan issue. We've got to work together, everyone, to make sure that we stop this global warming. Because if we don't, I think we're just going to be facing these types of storms at a much more frequent time.
Thank you, Gene. And I would echo everything you said. I think for most people in Bucks County, we grew up here not thinking there'd ever be a tornado. And I've had a number of people in July and now tell me how frightened they were and how they had to take to closets or basements or bathrooms to keep themselves safe. And it's something that we didn't think we'd ever do before.
Thank you, commissioners.
Anyone else? Looks like everyone is satisfied. And with that, we'll thank everybody for joining us, and we will let you get on with the rest of your afternoon.
Can I jump in here real quick and just say one thing I should have said earlier, just to reiterate? If anybody is having a problem, any resident, they should report their flooding problem, their structural problem to their township. The county gathers all that information from the township. So just a reminder, that's where you would call. And thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.